On Christmas Eve, a simple question from a child changes the lives of three strangers, and what begins as an innocent gesture triggers a twist no one could have imagined. Michigan Avenue glowed in golden and red hues, as if the city itself had dressed up to celebrate Christmas Eve. Lights blinked on lampposts in coordinated rhythm, storefronts displayed elaborate nativity scenes, and enormous trees stood majestically among the crowds that walked slowly, absorbing the magic of the night. The air was filled with expectation and joy, with entire families taking photos in front of Christmas scenes, while tourists marveled at this Chicago that transformed into a postcard. Michael Anderson adjusted Emma's scarf carefully, his fingers trembling slightly not from the cold, but from the contained emotion that always invaded him during these traditions. He insisted on maintaining. At 38, the reserved businessman carried on his shoulders the weight of 2 years of widowhood and the responsibility of raising his 4-year-old daughter alone. Even with the pain still latent in his heart, he knew Emma deserved these magical moments that her mother so loved to create. "Daddy, look how beautiful it is!" exclaimed Emma, her eyes shining brighter than the decorations around them. She wore a red beanie that contrasted with her brown hair and a pink parka that made her look even smaller amid the crowd of adults. Her tiny steps tried to keep pace with her father's measured rhythm, but there was a contagious energy in them that made Michael smile, even when he didn't want to. They walked slowly, unhurried, enjoying every detail of the decoration. Michael observed everything as if it were the first time, trying to see through his daughter's eyes that magic which for him had been lost, along with so many other important things. The Christmas songs coming from the speakers created a perfect soundtrack for that moment he would keep forever in his memory. It was when they passed in front of the bank near the intersection that Emma suddenly stopped. Her little steps ceased, and her attention fixed on something that was impossible for her to ignore. Michael, noticing that his daughter had stopped, followed her gaze in the same direction. Huddled under a thin, faded blanket, a young woman seemed to be sleeping, protecting herself from the damp cold of the Chicago night. Her brown hair was disheveled, her face marked by exhaustion, and her arms embraced something with such care that it seemed more like maternal instinct than conscious choice. There was something about that image that contrasted brutally with all the Christmas joy around. "Daddy, why is she sleeping on the street?" Emma asked, her voice firm but carrying the innocent curiosity typical of a child who still believes that everything can be solved with a gesture of kindness. Michael hesitated. It was common to see homeless people on the major avenues of Chicago, especially during winter. Part of him wanted to just move on, continue the walk and preserve Emma's Christmas magic, but there was something different about that scene that made him remain there, watching. "She must be going through difficulties, honey," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "But it's Christmas Eve," Emma insisted, as if this information was enough to solve any problem in the world. "She can't be on the street at Christmas." Gradually, Michael realized that the young woman wasn't alone. In her arms, protected by an even more worn blanket that could barely hide the cold, was a sleeping baby. The discovery made his heart tighten in a way he didn't expect. The girl seemed to be 20 at most, and there was something about the way she held the child that prevented any hasty judgment. It was pure protection, unconditional love with no words or explanations needed. "Daddy, can we help?" Emma's question echoed like a distant echo of his own conscience. He knew he should be prudent, that he didn't know this young woman's situation, that there were risks, but at the same time he felt a strange force pushing him forward, something that was born not only from his daughter's insistence, but from a personal need he couldn't explain. Without knowing exactly why, and even against his usual rational sense, Michael approached slowly. The young woman moved slightly but didn't fully wake. He could then see her face better. She was beautiful despite the evident exhaustion, and there was a dignity about her that remained intact even in that situation. "Excuse me," he said in a low voice, afraid of startling her. The young woman opened her eyes slowly, and for a moment seemed not to understand where she was. When she saw Michael and Emma standing there, her muscles tensed instinctively, hugging the baby more tightly. "Sorry to bother you," continued Michael, trying to sound as unthreatening as possible. "My daughter, we wanted to know if everything is okay." The young woman looked at him with distrust, her brown eyes analyzing every movement. It was evident that she was used to defending herself, to not trusting. But there was something about Emma's presence, about the way the girl observed her without judgment, that seemed to ease her tension. "Everything's fine. Thank you," she replied with a hoarse voice, clearly trying to maintain distance. "What's the baby's name?" Emma asked, completely ignoring the social protocols of adults. The young woman hesitated for a moment, but something in the girl's genuine smile made her answer, "Noah, his name is Noah." "Hi, Noah," said Emma, waving to the baby who was sleeping deeply. "I'm Emma. This is my daddy, Michael." It was Christmas, his daughter insisted on helping, and there was something about that image that stirred parts of him he didn't know still existed. Michael knew that his next decision would change everything, but at that moment, with Christmas lights blinking around and Emma's hopeful gaze fixed on him, there was no other choice to make. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Sophia," she answered softly, still holding Noah with fierce protection. "Sophia, would you and Noah like to spend tonight in a warm place?" If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. Sophia Martinez looked at Michael with a mixture of distrust and desperation. She had learned the hard way not to trust strangers, especially men who appeared with seemingly generous offers. But the cold was becoming unbearable, and Noah had begun to move restlessly in the last few minutes, a sign that he would soon wake up and need to be fed. "Why?" she asked, her voice laden with skepticism. "Why would you do this?" Michael hesitated. He himself didn't have a clear answer to that question. Maybe it was Christmas, maybe it was Emma, or maybe it was that strange feeling that he was facing something important that he simply couldn't ignore. "Because it's Christmas Eve," he replied, echoing his daughter's own words. "And because nobody should spend tonight on the street, especially not with a baby." Emma moved closer, her eyes shining with the typical determination of children who believe they can solve any problem in the world with goodwill. "Our house is big," she said naturally, "and Mrs. Nancy makes delicious hot chocolate. Noah will like it." Sophia looked at the girl and felt something move in her chest. It had been so long since she had seen such genuine innocence, such kindness without ulterior motives. In the last few months, since she had been kicked out of her home, she had only met people who wanted something in return, or who looked at her with pity disguised as compassion. "I'm not one of those people who," Sophia began, trying to explain that she wasn't an opportunist, but Michael gently interrupted her. "I know," he said. "I can see that." Noah moved once more and began to whimper softly. The sound made Sophia stand up instinctively, rocking the baby with automatic movements born from months of solitary care. Michael observed those gestures and recognized in them something he knew well, the unconditional love of someone protecting what they love most in the world. "Just for one night," Sophia finally said, her voice almost a whisper. "Just until tomorrow morning." Michael's apartment in Lincoln Park was everything Sophia had forgotten existed, spacious, quiet, with huge windows that showed the illuminated city below. There were paintings on the walls, books on the shelves, and a smell of cleanliness mixed with coffee that reminded her of a time that seemed to have been lived by another person. Mrs. Nancy appeared at the kitchen door, a woman in her 50s with gray hair tied in an impeccable bun, and an apron that showed decades of dedication to that house. Her eyes narrowed slightly when she saw Sophia and Noah, not out of malice, but from the natural concern of someone who had been caring for that family for more than 10 years. "Mrs. Nancy," said Michael, removing his coat, "this is Sophia and her son Noah. They'll be spending the night with us." "Good evening," Sophia greeted timidly, keeping Noah very close to her chest. She didn't let go of the baby for even a second, her arms functioning as a protective shield against any potential threat. Mrs. Nancy nodded politely, but Michael noticed the evaluating look she gave the two. He knew that expression well. The housekeeper was loyal and protective, especially with Emma, and any change in the house routine was received with caution. "I'll prepare the guest room," she finally said, heading towards the stairs. "You don't need to bother," Sophia quickly protested. "We can sleep in the living room or—" "Not a chance," interrupted Michael. "You and Noah need a proper place to rest." Emma took Sophia's hand with the naturalness typical of children who still don't know social barriers. "Come, I'll show you the house, and then you can show me your drawings." Sophia abruptly stopped. "My drawings?" "I saw you have a notebook in your backpack," explained Emma, pointing to the worn bag Sophia was carrying. "My mom used to draw too. Daddy told me she made really beautiful drawings of me when I was a baby." The mention of his deceased wife made Michael swallow hard. Emma spoke of her mother with the naturalness of someone who doesn't yet fully understand the concept of permanent absence. For her mother was simply someone who went to live with the angels and who continued to be present in other ways. "You draw?" asked Michael, genuinely curious. Sophia nodded hesitantly. "I studied visual arts before all this." She gestured vaguely, as if all this encompassed a series of events she preferred not to detail. Mrs. Nancy came down the stairs and announced that the room was ready. "I put clean towels and there's an improvised crib with pillows for the baby," she said, her tone slightly warmer. "If you need anything during the night, my room is right over there." "Thank you very much," replied Sophia, her voice carrying a gratitude that went beyond words. "Seriously, I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank," said Michael. "Just rest." But as she climbed the stairs following Mrs. Nancy, Sophia turned once more to look at Michael and Emma. There was something about those two that she couldn't completely decipher. It wasn't pity, it wasn't performative charity. It was something deeper, more genuine, that made her feel simultaneously grateful and suspicious. In the room, she placed Noah in the improvised crib and watched the baby sleep for a few minutes. At 9 months, he was her only constant, the only thing that made sense in a world that had collapsed around her. There were nights when she wondered if she had made the right choices, if she shouldn't have accepted the conditions imposed by her family and given Noah up for adoption. But then she would look at that serene little face and know that she would choose him millions of times over. Downstairs, Michael and Emma were finishing setting the kitchen table. "She seems sad, Daddy," observed the girl, always perceptive. "Sometimes people go through difficult times," explained Michael, choosing his words carefully. "Like we did when Mommy went away. But she has baby Noah to take care of her, like I take care of you," said Emma with the simple logic of children. Michael smiled, touched by the way his daughter saw the world. Maybe she was right. Maybe taking care of each other was indeed the answer to many things he still didn't know how to solve. That first night, the apartment seemed different. There was a new energy circulating through the corridors, a type of life that Michael hadn't felt for a long time. It was as if Sophia and Noah's presence had awakened something that was dormant, something he didn't even know he missed. The first days of January brought a cautious routine to the Lincoln Park apartment. Sophia woke before dawn, always alert, as if at any moment she might need to grab Noah and run. She barely spoke, limiting herself to whispered thanks and silent movements around the rooms of the house. She was like a discreet shadow trying to occupy as little space as possible. Michael maintained his normal work routine, leaving early for the office and returning late afternoon. But he began to notice small changes that he couldn't ignore. The living room windows were always spotless. Coffee was ready in the kitchen by morning, and dishes were washed before he even noticed they had been used. Sophia moved through the house like an almost invisible presence, but one that left everything around her slightly better. "She doesn't even seem to be here," commented Mrs. Nancy one morning, observing the perfectly organized kitchen. "But at the same time, I feel like the house is more alive." Emma, on the other hand, had no reservations regarding the temporary new residence. She had created instant bonds with Sophia, spending hours by her side, asking to see her drawings and asking innocent questions about everything and nothing. With Noah, she had assumed the role of an older sister, offering her toys as if they were priceless treasures. "Sophia, can you teach me to draw like you?" asked Emma one afternoon, sitting next to her on the living room couch. Sophia was sketching something in her crumpled notebook, while Noah slept in her arms. "You already know how to draw, Emma," Sophia replied softly, showing the colorful scribbles the girl had made earlier. "You just need to keep practicing. But yours are different. They look like real people." Sophia smiled, the first genuine smile she had displayed since arriving there. "That's because I pay attention to details. See how your dad furrows his eyebrows when he's concentrating? or how Mrs. Nancy nods her head when she's satisfied with something. Emma observed Sophia with wide eyes, as if she had just revealed an important secret of the universe. It was on a quiet Sunday morning that Michael found Sophia's notebook open on the solarium table. She had gone out for a walk around the block with Noah, and Emma was watching cartoons in the living room. Normally, Michael would respect others' privacy, but something about those drawings called his attention in an irresistible way. The illustrations were made with charcoal and graphite, all portraying everyday scenes of the house with an emotional precision that left him breathless. There was a drawing that showed him from behind, sitting at the breakfast table, looking out the window with an expression of melancholy that he didn't know he carried. Another recorded Emma observing the sky from the window, her eyes full of an innocent curiosity that seemed to shine even on paper. But there was one drawing in particular that completely paralyzed him. It showed Sophia sitting on the bench on Michigan Avenue with Noah in her arms, exactly as he had seen her on Christmas Eve. Only this time, drawn with such emotion and detail that the image seemed to pulse with its own life. There was dignity in that figure, strength amid vulnerability, unconditional love protecting itself against adversity. In that moment, Michael understood that Sophia wasn't just someone looking for temporary shelter. She possessed a rare talent, an ability to see the world in a way that few could, and this wasn't something that could be ignored or wasted. "Are they yours?" asked a voice behind him. Michael turned quickly, finding Sophia standing at the door of the solarium with Noah in her arms. Her eyes showed a mixture of embarrassment and resignation, as if she were accustomed to having her privacy invaded. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, closing the notebook. "I shouldn't have looked without your permission." "It's okay," she replied, approaching slowly. "It's nothing special." "Nothing special?" Michael stared at her incredulously. "Sophia, these drawings are extraordinary. You have a real gift." She looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the praise. "I studied visual arts at the University of Chicago. I dreamed of opening a small gallery one day, living from what I painted." Her voice carried a deep melancholy. "But life had other plans." "What happened?" asked Michael gently, without pressing. Sophia hesitated, rocking Noah, who had begun to move. "I got pregnant in my second year of college. The father was a course mate, someone I trusted. When I told him about the pregnancy, he disappeared from my life as if he had never existed. He changed his schedule, avoided places where he might run into me, blocked my number." Michael felt a pang of anger towards someone he didn't even know. "When I told my family," Sophia continued, "I received an ultimatum. Abandon the baby or abandon the house. My parents said I had destroyed the family's reputation, that a single mother at 19 was a shame they couldn't bear." She looked at Noah with infinite tenderness. "I chose my son. Since then, we've wandered between shelters and parks, trying to survive without losing who I am." The raw sincerity of that confession left Michael momentarily speechless. There was an impressive strength in that young woman, a determination that few adults could maintain in the face of such adversity. "You made the right decision," he finally said. "Sometimes I wonder," admitted Sophia, her voice almost a whisper. "There are nights when I look at Noah and wonder if he wouldn't deserve a better life, a structured family, opportunities that I might never be able to give him." "And what do you conclude on those nights?" Sophia smiled, and this time it was a smile that carried all the strength of a mother who knows her own heart. "That he is my son, and that love isn't something you buy or inherit. It's something you build every day, in every gesture, in every sacrifice, in every moment we choose to stay." In that instant, Michael recognized in her something that he himself had experienced since becoming a father. The absolute certainty that some bonds transcend any external circumstance, and that protecting those we love sometimes requires enough courage to face the entire world. "Sophia," he said, "making a decision he didn't even know he was considering. What if you didn't have to choose between your choices and your dreams?" If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. Sophia looked at Michael with an expression that mixed hope and distrust. She had learned not to trust promises, especially those that sounded too beautiful to be true. During the past few months, she had heard many words of support that never transformed into concrete actions. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, adjusting Noah in her arms. Michael hesitated for a moment, as if organizing thoughts that even he didn't completely understand. Your drawings are extraordinary, Sophia. You have a talent that deserves to be recognized, not hidden. And Noah deserves to grow up seeing that his mother is a brilliant artist. Michael, she said, her voice laden with fatigue, I appreciate the kindness, really, but I'm not naive. I know all this has an expiration date. Soon you'll want your privacy back, your normal routine, and I'll be exactly where I was before. What if it wasn't like that? He insisted. What if there was a way for you to rebuild your life without giving up Noah? Before Sophia could answer, Emma appeared running into the room, interrupting the conversation. Daddy, can you help me with the puzzle? There's a piece I can't find. Michael smiled at his daughter, and Sophia took advantage of the distraction to distance herself from the conversation. There was something in his proposal that scared her more than the street situation itself. It was the possibility of hope, and she had learned that hope could be crueler than despair. The following days brought a subtle tension to the apartment. Michael tried to create opportunities to talk with Sophia about the future, but she skillfully avoided all topics that involved long-term planning. During the nights when everyone was asleep, she stayed awake thinking about how she could leave that situation without hurting Emma, who had become so attached to her and Noah. It was on a Thursday dawn that Sophia made a decision. She took her few belongings and Noah, still sleeping, and silently headed for the exit door. She couldn't continue living with that uncertainty, creating roots in a place that wasn't hers, allowing Noah to get used to a comfort that could disappear at any moment. But when she reached the door, she found Emma sitting on the stairs as if waiting for her. You're leaving, said the girl, not as a question but as a sad statement. Sophia felt her heart tighten. Emma, you should be sleeping. I knew you would try to leave secretly, continued the girl, her large eyes shining in the dimness. That's what Mommy did. She left without saying goodbye too. The comparison hit Sophia like a punch in the stomach. Emma, it's not the same thing. Yes, it is, insisted the girl, tears beginning to stream down her face. Everyone I like goes away. First Mommy, now you and Noah. Emma's crying woke Noah, who began to whimper in Sophia's arms. The sound of the two babies crying and the silence of dawn was enough to wake Michael, who ran down the stairs, imagining something serious had happened. When he saw the scene, Sophia with her backpack on, Emma crying on the stairs, Noah restless, he immediately understood what was happening. Please, he said, approaching slowly, don't leave like this, Michael. I can't stay here, explained Sophia, her own voice breaking. It's not fair to you and it's not fair to me. I'm creating expectations that I don't know if I can fulfill. What expectations? He asked, genuinely confused. Of being part of this family, she replied, the words coming out more directly than she had planned. Emma is getting attached to me as if I'm going to stay forever. You're making plans as if I belong in this place. And I'm starting to believe that's possible. Michael moved closer, and for the first time since they met, Sophia didn't back away. And why is that bad? Because when everything collapses, it will hurt much more. It was in that moment of extreme tension that Noah began to cough differently. It wasn't the usual whimpering, but something deeper, more concerning. Sophia looked at him immediately, noticing that the baby was warmer than normal. He has a fever, she said, panic evident in her voice. Michael touched Noah's forehead and confirmed Sophia's concern. The baby's temperature was indeed high, and he seemed to be having difficulty breathing properly. We need to take him to the hospital, said Michael, all the previous discussion forgotten in the face of the emergency. What happened in the next few minutes was a whirlwind of action. Michael cancelled an important video conference that was scheduled for that morning, grabbed the car keys, and left in high speed through the still empty streets of Chicago. In the back seat, Sophia held Noah while Emma, who had insisted on going along, tried to calm the baby by singing softly the songs she had learned from her mother. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the doctors were quick and efficient. After a series of tests, they diagnosed a viral infection common in babies, but which could be dangerous if not properly treated. Noah would need to stay under observation for at least 24 hours. He'll be fine, assured the pediatrician, a middle-aged woman with a reassuring smile. But we need to monitor the fever and ensure he doesn't dehydrate. Sophia didn't leave the hospital crib side even for a minute. Michael brought blankets and coffee, while Emma drew colorful cards to cheer Noah when he woke up. It was as if that crisis had dissolved all the artificial barriers that existed between them. During the night, while Sophia finally fell asleep exhausted in the armchair next to the crib, Michael remained awake holding Noah's small hand. There was something about that moment, surrounded by the silence of the hospital, observing that baby who wasn't biologically his son, but who had somehow become important to him, that made Michael understand something fundamental about family. Family wasn't just blood or legal documents. It was the daily choice to care for, protect, and love someone, regardless of the circumstances that brought them together. When Noah finally opened his eyes the next morning, smiling weakly at Sophia, Michael knew there was no turning back. They had indeed become a family, even if they didn't yet know exactly how that would work. Noah's recovery marked a definitive transformation in the dynamics of the Lincoln Park apartment. After returning from the hospital, conversations about Sophia leaving never came up again. It was as if those hours of anguish had crystallized something that was already forming for weeks. They had become a family, even if not traditional. Sophia finally allowed herself to relax. She began to talk more during meals, to smile when Emma told funny stories from school, and even to accept help from Mrs. Nancy with Noah, the housekeeper, who had initially received the two with reservation, now cared for the baby as if he were her own grandson, creating an affectionate routine that included lullabies whispered in English and Italian. "Did you know that Sophia speaks 3 languages?" commented Emma one night during dinner, always proud of the discoveries she made about her new friend. "3 languages?" asked Michael, genuinely surprised. "English, Spanish, and Italian," explained Sophia, slightly embarrassed by the attention. "It was part of the arts course. The professor said artists need to communicate with the whole world." Michael nodded, but there was something in her tone that indicated an underlying sadness. In the following days, he began to notice that Sophia avoided talking about her artistic dreams in the past tense, as if that part of her life was definitely over. It was during a weekend that Michael made a decision that would change everything. While Sophia and Emma played in the garden with Noah, he picked up the phone and called an acquaintance from the artistic world, Marina Albright, owner of a respected gallery in Wicker Park. "Marina, I need a favor," he said, getting straight to the point. "I have a very talented artist here who needs an opportunity." "Michael Anderson interested in art," laughed Marina on the other end of the line. "That's new. You who only talked about numbers and investments." "People change," he replied, looking out the window where Sophia was drawing while watching the children play. "This young woman has a real gift. I'd like you to see her work." Marina agreed to receive some portfolios the following week, but Michael had other plans. During the days that followed, he secretly observed Sophia's schedules, noting that she always drew in the morning, when natural light flooded the solarium. Without telling anyone, Michael began to discreetly photograph Sophia's drawings. It wasn't a violation of privacy. He asked for indirect permission, commenting on how he thought it was important to document art, and she had distractedly agreed. But she didn't know he was organizing something much bigger. One morning, while Sophia was giving Noah a bath, Michael opened his laptop and began to search for available spaces for events in Wicker Park. There was a small but elegant gallery that was available for rent for a week. It was perfect, intimate, well-located, with professional lighting. "What are you doing?" asked Emma, appearing out of nowhere as only children can do. "I'm preparing a surprise," replied Michael, quickly closing the laptop. "For Sophia?" "It's a surprise, Emma. Can you keep a secret?" The girl nodded vigorously, her eyes shining with the excitement of being complicit in something special. In the following weeks, Michael worked in silence. He contacted a professional to properly frame Sophia's drawings, hired a company specialized in lighting for art exhibitions, and even ordered a simple but elegant catalogue with reproductions of the works. The project took on a dimension he hadn't initially anticipated. As he organized the exhibition, Michael realized he was doing much more than just helping Sophia. He was creating something that connected all of them, a way to show the world the talent he had discovered, but also a way for Sophia to recover her artistic identity and her self-esteem. Mrs. Nancy, always observant, noticed Michael's mysterious outings and the whispered calls he made in his office. "You're up to something," she said one day, while folding clothes in the laundry room. "Why do you say that?" asked Michael, trying to disguise. "Because I've known you for over 10 years, and because I've seen that you're more excited than you've been since—" She hesitated. "Since before Mrs. Julia passed away." The mention of his deceased wife made Michael stop what he was doing. It was true. It had been months since he had felt so motivated by a project, so emotionally involved with something that wasn't just work or paternal obligations. "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" he asked in a rare display of vulnerability. "I think you're doing what your heart tells you," replied Mrs. Nancy with a warm smile. "And that's always the right thing." Meanwhile, Sophia continued her routine without suspecting anything. She drew every morning, cared for Noah with the same dedication as always, and slowly allowed herself to dream of small things, maybe going back to school, maybe finding a job that would allow her to use her creativity, maybe even having a future where Noah would grow up in a stable and loving environment. One afternoon, while organizing her most recent drawings, she found a sheet that she had forgotten in the middle of the notebook. It was a self-portrait she had made a few weeks back, but looking at it now, she noticed something different. The face that looked back at her from the paper was no longer the same as months ago. There was hope in those drawn eyes, a serenity she hadn't felt for a long time. "Noah," she said, showing the drawing to the baby who was playing on the rug, "I think maybe things are really improving for us." Noah smiled, as if he perfectly understood what his mother was saying. And for the first time in a long time, Sophia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had finally found a home. This was exactly how Michael wanted her to feel when she discovered the surprise he had prepared. There were just a few days left until the inauguration of the exhibition, and he knew that moment would change everything for Sophia, for Noah, and perhaps even for himself. Saturday morning began seemingly normal in the Lincoln Park apartment. Sophia was in the solarium drawing Noah sleeping, capturing every detail of the baby's serene little face, when Michael appeared dressed more elegantly than usual. "Sophia," he said, with a mixture of nervousness and excitement in his voice, "I need to take you somewhere." She looked at him curiously. "Where?" "It's a surprise." "Do you trust me?" There was something in his tone that made Sophia hesitate. In the last few months she had learned to trust Michael, but surprises still made her apprehensive. Her life experience had taught her that surprises could be both blessings and catastrophes. "Can Noah come too?" she asked instinctively. "Of course. Emma is coming with us too. Mrs. Nancy will meet us there." The journey to Wicker Park was filled with animated conversation between Emma and Noah, who had begun to babble sounds that seemed like attempts at communication. Sophia observed the urban landscape through the window, trying to decipher Michael's expressions that alternated between anxiety and contained joy. When the car stopped in front of a small gallery with elegant glass windows, Sophia felt her stomach tighten. "Michael, what are we doing here?" "Find out," he said, getting out of the car and extending his hand to help her. The doors of the Creative Space Gallery opened, and Sophia entered hesitantly, carrying Noah in her arms. What she saw made her stop abruptly, her breathing becoming irregular. On the white, perfectly illuminated walls were her drawings. All of them, carefully framed, arranged with artistic criteria, each highlighted by professional lighting that revealed details she herself had forgotten she had captured. There were people circulating through the gallery, observing the works with genuine attention and interest. "I don't understand," she whispered, her legs trembling slightly. "It's your exhibition." "Sophia," Michael explained softly, positioning himself beside her. "It's called The Gaze That Sees the Invisible." Tears began to stream down her face without her being able to control them. Noah, sensing his mother's emotion, observed her with wide eyes as if wanting to understand why she was crying. How did you do this?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I photographed your drawings with your indirect permission, sought contacts in the artistic world, organized everything in the past few weeks," explained Michael. "You have real talent, Sophia. The world needs to see this." Emma appeared running, holding Mrs. Nancy's hand, who was also moved by the scene. "Sophia, your drawings are famous," exclaimed the girl, pointing to a group of people animatedly discussing one of her works. An elegant woman with silver hair and sophisticated glasses approached them. "You must be Sophia Martinez," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Marina Albright, art critic for the Chicago Tribune. Your works are impressive. There's an emotional honesty here that is rare to find." Sophia shook her hand, still in shock, unable to form coherent words. "Especially this one," continued Marina, pointing to the drawing that showed Sophia on the Michigan Avenue bench. "It's autobiographical, isn't it? There's a universality in the way you portrayed motherhood, protection, dignity, even in adversity. It's visual poetry." During the next few hours, Sophia experienced something that seemed surreal. People approached to praise her works, asked questions about her technique, and 3 buyers became seriously interested in her pieces. A young art student commented on how the drawings inspired her to persist in her own dreams, for even in the face of difficulties. But it was when she saw a specific drawing that she had completely forgotten that Sophia understood the magnitude of Michael's gesture. It was a quick sketch she had made of him some days after Noah had gotten sick. It showed Michael sleeping in the hospital chair, one hand protecting Noah in the crib, the other resting on the arm of the armchair where she had slept. It was a drawing about protection, about chosen family, about love that is born from the daily decision to care. "Why did you do this?" she asked, finding Michael near the entrance of the gallery, where he was discreetly observing the movement. "Because you deserve to be seen," he answered simply. "Because Noah deserves to grow up knowing that his mother is a talented artist. And because," he hesitated, searching for the right words, "because you taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about choosing to stay every day." In that moment, Sophia understood that her life had definitely changed. Not just because her drawings were being recognized, but because she had found people who believed in her, even when she herself had lost faith. "Michael," she said, holding Noah closer to her chest, "I don't know how I'm going to repay this." "You don't need to repay anything," he replied, gently touching her shoulder. "You just need to continue being who you are. Continue seeing the world in the unique way that you see it. Continue being the incredible mother that you are to Noah." Emma appeared running once more, this time holding a colorful pamphlet. "Sophia, look! Your name is here on the paper." She showed the exhibition catalogue where Sophia's name appeared in elegant letters. "Emma," said Sophia, kneeling to be at the girl's height, "thank you for teaching me that family is about choosing to love each other. Will you stay with us forever?" asked Emma, her eyes shining with hope. Sophia looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly, and then at Noah, who smiled as if he perfectly understood the importance of that moment. "If you want me," she replied, "I would very much like to stay." Mrs. Nancy, who had observed the entire scene in silence, approached, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief. "This house needs you as much as you need it," she said, caressing Noah's face. "That's how the best families are formed." When the exhibition ended that night, with 3 works sold and orders for others, Sophia knew that her life had changed forever. It wasn't just about the artistic success, although that was important. It was about having found a place in the world where she could be a mother, an artist and a woman simultaneously, without having to choose between these identities. On the way back home, Noah fell asleep in the back seat, and Emma hummed softly a song she had learned at school. Michael drove in silence, but there was a peace in his expression that hadn't existed for a long time. "You know what's most amazing in all this?" said Sophia, breaking the silence. "What?" asked Michael. "It's that it began on a Christmas Eve when you could have simply passed us by, but you chose to stop, chose to see." "Actually," replied Michael, smiling, "I think it was you who saw me. You reminded me of what it's like to be truly alive." When they arrived at the apartment that night, they were no longer a lonely businessman, a homeless artist, and 2 children trying to survive circumstances. They were a family that had chosen to form, to support each other, and to grow together. And so, dear listeners, ends this story that teaches us that the strongest bonds are not those we are born with, but those we build with our daily choices. Sophia and Michael discovered that true love, whether romantic or familial, always begins with the decision to see the other, to recognize their value, and to choose to stay even when it would be easier to move. Tonkia, this narrative of hope and reconstruction, reminds us that each of us has the power to transform not only our own life, but also the lives of those we choose to love. If this story touched your heart as it touched ours, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to discover more stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit and the beauty of the bonds we choose to create. Leave a like if you believe that family is about choosing to love, and tell us in the comments which part of this journey moved you the most.